Welcome to this video on customizing with folder properties in Proloquo2Go 4. I'm David.
And I'm Jennifer.
In this video we will show you some of the more advanced customization features of Proloquo2Go 4, including how to change the properties of a folder and all its buttons at once. So let's have a look at a folder. So I'm going to Things, I'm going to Clothing, and I'm going into Edit Mode. So here on the left we see the button properties. Because I have no button selected, the area below that is empty, and here I can tap and then I get the folder properties, and the first thing I see is the name and the symbol. So if I would like to change this, then this is where I would do that. So I could, for example, change this to clothing or this one. The next thing I can do is I can go to the template row, and this is where we can see what template is being used. Right now we're using the Things template, but if instead I would like to use another template, maybe the Leisure template, I tap here and you can see how some of the buttons of the template, the buttons with the T's, changed. I can also set it to use no template at all. In that case I would tap down here, and then it doesn't use any template and it just has the word specific to this category. I'm going to set it back to Things. Then this is where you can change the content related settings. You can see in this folder that you cannot move buttons anywhere you like. So for example, if I take the pajamas here and I try to put it down here, it jumps back. I can also not, for example, take the dress button and move it on top of the have button, because if I release it, it jumps back. You also notice that if you change the grid size, the same buttons for fringe words, that is the words that are specifically about clothing, stay on the page. Let's have a look at how that works. So I'm currently looking at a 5x9. I'm going in my quick options, and let's go to a 3x6. And what you can see is that the buttons such as button and dress and clothes and the trousers and the pajamas, they all stay on the page. And I only have now not more and all done from the template. If I go to a larger grid size, I tap for example 4x8, I get additional template buttons, but I have the exact same fringe words in there that are specific to clothing. If I jump to 6x10, I get even more template buttons that allow me to talk about the topic, and I still have the exact same clothing items. So one of the benefits of having a folder where you cannot position everything exactly where you might want to put it is that it allows Proloquo2Go to automatically flow your content within the template as you move from grid size to grid size. Because it's impossible in this type of folder to move buttons anywhere you want, but instead they are ordered and they flow around the template contents, it's also possible to add or remove buttons, and as you move from grid size to grid size, those changes will stay in effect. So for example, I'm going to select the skirt here, I'm going to move that to storage, and I'm going to go into storage and choose the fedora hat. I'll move that to primary. I'm going back to primary. So here I have my fedora hat and I no longer have the skirt. If I now go to different grid size, let me go to 5x9 for example, as you can see, I still have the fedora hat and the skirt is also no longer there. So this is really one of the big benefits of using this kind of folders where you order the items the way you want. So I can move the shirt after the 90 and then go maybe to 4x8, and you see that the same order is still kept. Now, it is possible to set up a folder so that you can position buttons anywhere you want to and leave blank spaces between them. For an example of how this works, let's look at some folders in Crescendo where we've used this feature. So I'm going to go to the Home folder, and in the Home folder you can see I can add a new button anywhere I want. If I now go to a different size, so I might go to 5x9 here, and let's swipe a little bit. So as you can see, the button arrangement changes with every grid size. Each of these layouts was created manually. For each grid size, you need to separately move the buttons into place. Creating a folder like this for multiple grid sizes can be very complex and time consuming. The home folder does not have a template. Let's see how a folder that uses a template and allows you to place buttons in any position works. So I'm going to go into Actions, and this, as you can see, also I can add buttons anywhere I like here, and I could move buttons. So I could take this one here, move it down and position it right there if I wanted. I could even take this one and position it on top of one of the template buttons. So that means you really can do a lot more with a folder that's set up like this. However, with that come also a lot of responsibilities, because you need to make sure that you have a good layout in every single grid size. So in this particular folder, the arrangement changes also as I move from grid size to grid size. So let me go up to 6 by 10. And what was done is that we made sure that the largest number of frequently used verbs were available and organized in the page without scrolling. We recommend, if you would like to have a folder where you can move buttons anywhere on the screen and have gaps, that you select one grid size to use rather than trying to optimize the folder for multiple grid sizes, as this is a lot of work. This is especially true if you're using a template. It's very easy to get results you might not expect when you switch grid sizes. So you've listened to our warnings about creating a folder that looks different for every grid size, but you'd still like to give it a try. Here's how you do this with a new folder. So I'm going to go out of this folder, exit edit mode, and I'm going to navigate home, and then I'll go to the secondary page of home and I'll make a new folder there. So I'm going to make the new folder. Let me make that in a slightly different place. So I tap new folder, and now instead of picking a template, I'm going to choose no template, and then go to the next step, and I will give this folder the name Cosmetics. Alright, and I'm going to set it to manual layout for each grid size. So I turn that on, done. And now I'm going to go into the folder, and as you can see, I can create buttons anywhere in this folder. And let me just do one example here. Lipstick. Oops. There we go. Done. So now I've created the button. If I exit edit mode, as you can see, the button is surrounded by empty space. It's also possible to change the manual layout setting for an existing folder. So let's go back to clothing, some things, clothing, and I'm going to edit mode now, and I'm going to tap on folder here, and I go to contents, and now I'm going to switch over to manual layout for each grid size. And as you see, I instantly got the new places where I can make new buttons, or I can move existing buttons. So now let's see what happens if I decide that I want to go back to the old situation. I tap and I get a warning. The warning says that the contents of the current layout will be used for all grid sizes. Any other size specific layouts will be deleted. That means if I've done a lot of work and actually customized this folder in all these different grid sizes, if I set it back to no longer use the manual layout, then I will lose all those customizations except the customizations that I made at the particular size that I am setting this back to. So I'm going to press continue now, and now I'm back to a folder where I can just add a button at the end. Sometimes you will want to create a folder that always shows at a particular grid size, no matter which grid size is selected in options. For example, if you're creating a photo album, you may want a 2x2 folder that shows off the photos better. Here's how you set up a folder to always show at a certain grid size. I'm going to exit edit mode now, and I'm going to go to home, and then I'm going to go into chat and into about me, and there I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm now going to make a new folder, and that folder I'm not going to use a template for it. So I set it to no template. Next step, and I'll call it my photos. Okay, I actually like this picture. So that's what I'm going to select, and I'm going to be done now. I open the folder, and I'm going to add a few photos there. So I tap plus. Let's do a butterfly. Oops. And I actually have a nice butterfly picture. Choose a picture. Let me see. I'll choose that one. And I'll crop it a little bit. And use that. So I have a nice butterfly picture. And now let's add another one. And in this case, I'm not going to even put any text to speech because I just want to show this as a big picture. So I'll choose one. And there we have one. Let's see what else could we do. Let's do another butterfly here. All right. And let's add one more. And again, I'll not choose any text to speech. I'll go to my nature photos and maybe do some nice mountains. And I'll use that. And let's do one last one. And I'm going to take another picture that I have here, maybe the waterfall, kind of like that. I'll use that, and now the next step is that I want to actually make sure it is shown always in 2x2. So I go to grid size, and I see lots of different grid sizes, but not 2x2. So I'm going to other size, number of rows 2, number of columns 2. Okay, and then I tapped done, don't forget that. And there we go. I now have these really nice big pictures. And if I actually wanted to not show the butterfly text, but I still would like to speak it, then I can go here and I could say display image only. But now if I tap it,
Butterfly.
it'll say butterfly. Now I'm going to exit this folder, so I go back to About Me, and as you can see, About Me still has the regular grid size. If I jump back into my photos, I have the 2x2 grid.
Just like you may want a particular folder to be at a different grid size than the rest of the vocabulary, you may also want a particular folder to be at a different vocabulary level than the rest of the vocabulary. One situation where this might make sense is when you're transitioning someone from basic communication to intermediate core. You can take one of the folders that has a different version for each vocabulary level, like food, and set that folder to be at intermediate core. This will allow the person to get experience with intermediate core before switching the whole vocabulary. So I'll show you how that's done. I'm going to go to Home, get rid of the butterfly, and go into First Appearance. I'm going to set this to something that I know there is a basic communication layout for, so 4x8 is a good place to start. And then I'm going to go into Vocabulary and Vocabulary Level and set this to Basic Communication. I'm going to just go into, I'm going to go into About Me and show you that my photos is still there, even though we added it in intermediate, and we still have this nice 2x2 arrangement. And now I'm going to go into Food. And you can see that food for basic communication is pretty basic. And food is often something that a person who is a beginning communicator can handle more vocabulary around because it's a highly motivating and frequently occurring activity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edit mode, and then I'm going to tap Folder and scroll down, and you can see this section here that's called Vocabulary Level. I'm going to tap it, and you can see that by default we're going to use the vocabulary level that's set in options, which is basic communication, but I can select any of the other vocabulary levels. So I'll select intermediate core, and here you see we have the intermediate core template and also some additional food choices. And of course I can customize these food choices very easily, as you will find out in some other videos about customization. So I'm going to go exit edit mode, Here I am with food. If I go back to home, home is still on basic communication, so is drinks. But in food I can start working on some core vocabulary. You can also set a particular folder to display as a list instead of a grid. This can be useful for schedules. So let me show you how that's done. If I come here and go into school, so let me show you how that's done. I'm going to change the grid size. I'm going to go to Appearance and 5 by 9. As you can see, we happen to have a My Rules and a My Schedule folder here. If I go into My Schedule, I can go into Edit Mode, bring this up, go into Folder, and if I scroll down here where it says Display Style, I have two choices, Grid View and List View. If I select List View, then I have a list of things, and I can add things to them and change their order this way if I would like when I'm in edit mode. Now let me just switch this back. And set that to grid view. You can also set the background color of a folder if you would like to have it stand out. So if, for instance, I wanted my schedule to have a very soothing blue background, I could do something like this, and then I would know it's very different from the home page. That I could have a background color of something a little more exciting. Another feature you might find useful occasionally is the ability to set the speech properties for all buttons in the folder. So I could, for example, come in here to Speech in the Folder tab, and I could pick, right now voice is set to the default voice. I can pick any voice that's on the system, so I could have this folder, Speak with Rachel, if I wanted to. There's just a few more features in the Folder tab I want to show you. It's possible to set some other properties of all the buttons in the folder at once. So when I'm showing you this, I'm going to switch back to Intermediate Core, and I'm going to go to Things and Clothing again. And we're still in edit mode. I'm going to tap the Folder tab, bring that up so I can see it. And here we have Default Button Properties. This is where I can set all of the buttons in this folder at the same time. You can set all the buttons in the folder to auto-close when in pop-ups, on, off, or default. Default will follow whatever you've set in Options. Then if you have one or more individual buttons that you want to have the opposite behavior, you can set the auto-close behavior of just those buttons. And you can do the same for Snapback. We have another video just on pop-ups and Snapback, so you can get more information on these features there. You can also set the appearance for all the buttons in the folder. So I would tap the appearance and I can change the background color to be gray. And as you'll notice, what's happening is this is setting the buttons that are in the folder, not the buttons that are part of the template. So just remember that. I can set the text to be bigger just for those buttons if I want to, or I could pick a different font. I can set the display to only show the image, and I can set the border color to be black. Let's see, let's choose red, and I can set the border width to be very thick. So I can certainly make this folder look incredibly annoying. I can also override these settings just for a few particular buttons. So let's say I wanted the nightwear to be different, so I can select these two buttons. Now that we've selected some buttons, you can see that the Edit panel jumped to the button area so that we can set properties of the buttons we've selected. For the background color of these buttons, I would like to use very light blue, and I would like them to display the text, and I would like them to have a hairline border. So I can do a lot of customization. I can set most of the buttons using just the folder settings here, and I can pick a few buttons and change them to be different than the folder settings. So now I've really messed up my clothing folder, and I'm wondering whether I have a lot of work ahead of me to set it back to where it was, but it turns out I can just tap this revert to original here, and it's going to revert to what this folder was when it was originally created in Crescendo. So I'll tap that. Yes, I want to revert it. And it takes a little while, and now you see everything is back the way it was originally. We don't have the fedora anymore. We do have the skirt. All of the colors are back. So that's a really quick way to be able to experiment with a folder, knowing that you can quickly get it back to where it was at the very beginning.
Do check out the resources we have on our website. In addition to other videos, you will also find a PDF manual, tutorials, as well as links to our various Facebook groups.